Hey everyone, it's William Moore, and you're watching Beyond the Ties That Bind. Thanks for joining me. I pray that everybody is having as good of a day as you could possibly have in the situation we now find ourselves in. Wanted to make a video concerning the week we just had, the week we're going into. The one thing that you can say about the week we're going into is that it will be unlike any week that we have previously experienced within history. The sad thing is, you could say that last week and the week before. There's so many things going on that sometimes daily you could take the events of just that one day and write chapters in the history book of the world. So every week from here on out is going to be a week unlike any other week we've had previously because they are unfolding their plan for world governance right in front of us. They're destroying the economy, and they're throwing everyone on Main Street under the bus so that they can purchase basically everything that there is. And when I say they, I mean the central bank, the Federal Reserve. These banks, through the federal government, will be purchasing stakes in companies. They will be bailing out companies. They will be purchasing small businesses, even though now we're told that there's going to be problems with the rollout of the small business relief. So a lot of small businesses will not be getting the relief they expected. However, that $2.2 trillion will be spent, even though some people now are questioning whether or not they're going to even get their $1,200 stimulus check. However, that money will still be spent. It is absolutely insane what's going on right now. The economy is crashing, and you have people out of jobs, people losing their businesses. These businesses have been in families for decades. They're losing their businesses, small businesses going under. And then you've got Trump on TV talking about how great his ratings are for his press conference, that they're Super Bowl like, that they're like The Bachelorette or The Bachelor. And he's number one on Facebook and number one on Twitter. Who cares? You have people that have lost their jobs. They don't know how they're going to pay their house payment, how they're going to pay their car payment, how they're going to put food on the table for their family, how they're going to provide basic necessities for their family. And all this man is worried about is his ratings and where he places on Facebook and Twitter. And people still support him. So before I get going, though, I want to stop real quick and point out that people, when you tune in here and you're searching for truth and you do the research and you're wanting to find out things, I love each and every one of you that do that. When I use a term such as idiot, which I'm going to try and cut back on using that term, toning down the rhetoric a little bit, there's some anger within what's going on, and it comes across in how I talk at times, and I'm going to try and tone that down. Some of it's passion. But when I call a person an idiot, I am talking about a person who's presented with evidence, who will not accept evidence, who is told to research and will refuse to research, and is even pointed in the direction of things that they can research to find out the truth, but refuse to do that. I have people making comments. I have people writing me, and I'll delete some of the comments on this channel because I just don't want to deal with it, don't want to read it. When people suffer from cognitive dissonance on that level, I just don't want to have anything to do with it. So I will delete their comment and block them from the channel. I do have a habit at times, and it's a bad habit, of feeding the trolls when I should be feeding those who are tuning in to, hear something that's going to edify them or give them knowledge of a current event that they may not had knowledge of previously. So, had a friend of mine, he wrote, gave me some constructive criticism. I appreciate that, and I'm going to try a little bit harder to address the people who are tuning in, who want to know truth, who want to gain knowledge of something. But it still does irk me that people, you will present them evidence, you'll point them in a direction, and they'll just deny it. They won't accept it because they want to stay within that realm that they've been brought up in. They want to stay within believing what they've been brainwashed to believe. And those people I have no time for. But the people who are tuning in who really want to watch and want to learn something, I love each and every one of you. The spies, though, and the ones that just want to debate, I have no time for. And so I need to reduce the time that I give them, even when I'm talking about things. And I also need to provide links more often concerning topics that I cover, and also give you the names of the books that I am reading concerning history so that you can go and read those books yourselves. So, with that said, probably going to cut back on the shows to about 2 a week. I know I said that before, but my computer does not want to cooperate with me. And sometimes I have to take 4 and 5 takes because everything crashes and I lose what I've recorded on video. So it's very frustrating to work 4 hours and only be able to put up a half-hour video for that 4 hours of time. So anyway, probably going to cut back to 1 or 2 videos a week. But I want to let each and every one of you know that tune in because you want to learn something, because you have an interest in what I have to say. That I'm going to be talking more to you and, you know, try and refrain from speaking to the critics or the spies. Because really, I don't want to spend my time on them. I don't want to give that time to them because then they win. Um, so anyway, we had a wild week, and yesterday, St. Louis Fed President James Bullard comes out and he says that universal daily COVID-19 testing will help restore the economy's health. He wants everyone to have daily testing done. He says there's good news for those who think the U.S. economy will have a tough time recovering from the coronavirus pandemic. He said there's a solution using available technology today to fix the economic part. What's that solution? Universal testing. Then he says it's a system where every American will be tested every day and would wear a badge with their negative results similar to the ones people wear after they vote. Remember back in the 1930s and 40s when the Jewish or slash Ashkenazi slash Khazar people, remember those badges they would wear after they voted in Nazi Germany? I guess he's talking about those because it sounds like that. Even though I don't buy the 6 million number because you can't have 6 million people exterminated when at the beginning of the war you only had 2 million people who were Jewish, Ashkenazi, Khazar in Europe. So you can't exterminate 6 million when you only have a population of 2 million. However, I'm not denying atrocities took place because atrocities did take place. I don't care what ethnicity you are. When your freedom is being denied, that is an atrocity because that's what this is all about. Freedom. Freedom for each individual to do as they want to do, as long as they're not hurting their neighbor, as long as they're not destroying their neighbor's property. No one has a higher claim to your life and property than you do. No one has a higher claim over my life and property than me. That's why all of these stay-at-home orders, shelter-in-place orders, these lockdowns, this martial law, it is an atrocity. It is a crime against humanity. So anyway, doesn't this sound like a major surveillance state? You have to do daily testing and then wear your little badge, like the badge that was worn by the Jewish people back in Germany in the 1930s and 40s? Isn't that what he's talking about when they voted? So you have this surveillance state being created right before our eyes. And not only is it being created with the mandatory daily testing on the table, but now you have people turning other people in. I've got a friend. He owns a business. He owns 4 businesses, actually. One's been shut down in the city of Branson. I'm not going to say his name because I don't have permission to say his name, but he owns health clubs. One's been shut down, and he's got 3 that are open, and he is trying to abide by the guidelines for social distancing so he can keep the other 3 open. And yet there's still people calling him and calling the mayor, the city council, and the county health departments on him, complaining that he's open. Now, he owns a health club. Most of the people who are calling on him are probably these 500-pound people shoving donuts in their pie hole and drinking their diet Pepsis as they're driving, on their way home to sit on their couch and watch the latest episode of whatever's on Netflix. He's not hurting you. He's actually doing a service to those who want to remain healthy, because if you want to remain healthy, the best thing that you can do is exercise. I know that that's foreign to a lot of you that are making these calls, not the people watching. But anyway, it's a surveillance state. I cannot believe what's going on with the social distancing. And then you've, here in the state of Missouri today, we have an executive order from the governor. And even though in that order it says that businesses which are not deemed essential can still stay open, why even put something out like this? Why put an executive order out like this, which tells people to shelter in place, and then saying that you're not going to enforce it, that it would be enforced by local jurisdictions as far as what they wanted to do and how they enforced it? So why put anything out? I'm all for what the South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem stated, and she had a press conference concerning COVID-19, wherein she stated, "Our Constitution ensures the citizen's right is protected," and that she took an oath to uphold that. And the people themselves are primarily responsible for their safety. I like this. They are the ones that are entrusted with the expansive freedoms. They're free to exercise their right to work, to worship, and to play, or even to stay at home or to conduct social distancing. Since the middle of February, I have been very clear that people need to take personal responsibility for their health and well-being of their families. Now, even though I'm not for government, I can get behind what this governor is stating. She says the people themselves are primarily responsible for their safety. So she prefers, dangerous liberty over peaceful slavery. She says they are the ones that are entrusted with expansive freedoms. She's going to trust the people with expansive freedoms. Now, Governor Parson of Missouri, he can't do that. He can't make a statement like that because he caves in to the special interest in St. Louis and Kansas City. So I have no respect for him whatsoever. And then you have Dr. Anthony Fauci and Bill Gates. Now, I'm not for government at all, but last I checked, Bill Gates was not an elected official. He's just a person who stands to make a lot of money off of this coronavirus pandemic. And he is making policy. Now, you had Event 201 back in October of 2019, which was a simulation of a coronavirus being released, or a coronavirus epidemic, pandemic. And we see Event 201 playing out in front of us. So this man's in charge of policy, yet he was never elected. And you have Dr. Anthony Fauci and him. Apparently, they're good buddies because the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation gave Mr. Fauci $100 million. It was a grant to a foundation that he runs called Pirbright. So you have this man, Fauci, receiving $100 million, a grant from the Gates Foundation. And this man, he gets $100 million. Do you not think that that's going to have an impact on what he says when he's in front of the cameras and when he's trying to lead or guide legislation? And that's what this is. This is legislation that we have coming down under these executive orders, under these national emergency orders, which are coming down. It's legislation. He's the one, even though they don't practice social distancing on the platform, he's telling everyone else that they need to practice social distancing. Is Bill Gates staying at home? Is he practicing social distancing? No. And he wants to reduce the population. And he has came out and stated that the population needs to be reduced by 15%. Yet this man, who's going to make a lot of money off of the virus and the vaccines, he is helping guide legislation and helping guide the direction that the country is going in right now. So it really, that's one of the reasons I'm so mad, is because Bill Gates, he's a billionaire, and they just call for a complete and utter shutdown and quarantining of America. And this from a guy who's poised to make millions of dollars in the market, because of the chaos within the recent weeks. And he practically controls policy at the World Health Organization, which is a Rothschild funded organization, funded by Bill and Melinda Gates as well. So, here he's going to make a lot of money. He controls policy. He's going to make money off of the vaccine as well. And this guy, he gets excited over this type of stuff. He gets excited over pandemics. He gets excited over a contagion that could possibly wipe out 33% of the population of planet Earth. And he gets excited when new vaccines are introduced. And he is helping create policy. It should not be at all. And then you've got, as I was talking about Trump, he's talking about his, Facebook being number one, his Twitter being number one, his ratings higher than the Super Bowl, higher than The Bachelor, higher than The Bachelorette. While people are losing their jobs, they're going to lose their homes, they're going to lose their vehicles, they're not going to be able to provide basic necessities for their family. You've got 30% unemployment, which was predicted by Bullard. And now he states that all we need is this universal testing. Everything can get back to normal. No, Mr. Bullard, things are not going to get back to normal. There are small businesses that are closing down that are going to close down forever. Then you have J.C. Penney coming out stating if they open their doors, they might be opening their doors just for a liquidation sale so they can close their doors permanently. Then you've got AMC Theaters stating that they'll probably never open again. So then you've got, all of these large corporations and even the United States Postal Service that needs a bailout. They're going to be standing in line for a bailout. Then you've got GM and Ford, which are talking, this is speculation by an industry insider, but this guy knows what he's talking about, stating that there's a possibility of GM and Ford merging, where GM would produce the passenger vehicles and Ford would produce the trucks and the SUVs. I guess that argument is now finally settled. Who makes the best trucks? Since, of course, Ford would be making the trucks. I mean, that's one thing funny that comes out of this. Now, the car manufacturers, they've done this to themselves because they've overpriced themselves $100,000 for an SUV. Come on. That's crazy. But yes, apparently Ford is the better of the trucks, and it's going to be funny now when the Chevy guys go out to buy a truck and they have to buy a Ford. Um, Kind of funny. Anyway, we're going to have war. You have the rhetoric between China and America heating up, but it's not being talked about on mainstream media outlets. It's being talked about in newspapers and such. It's being talked about, on the alternative media in the internet. But these are things, the saber rattling that's going on right now between China and America, it's for real. I mean, there's real quotes, real incidents going on in the South Sea that tell us there's saber rattling going on and we are close to war. Also, saber rattling going on between America and Iran. And then you have sanctions on Iran to where they can't even get supplies to their people, which are needed. That's an act of war, and that's a crime. That's an American war crime against a country, keeping basic necessities from people who need them. I mean, there was a time not too long ago that people couldn't even get diapers for their babies. Babies suffering in Iran because of American sanctions. No man has the right to do that to people he doesn't even know. He's never even interacted with. So you have all of that going on. Also, print newspapers. They said that since this entire outbreak that sales are down 60% and they're about to go out of business. Now, I don't mind because the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and the Springfield News Leader are, they have a very liberal slant, so it doesn't bother me that they're going under. But those are jobs that are associated with those papers. There are jobs that are associated with those papers. So a lot of people going to lose their jobs. America is never going to look the same again. America is dead and gone. The America that we knew just 8 weeks ago, dead and gone. What we are going through right now is a funeral. The last nail in the coffin was either the Federal Reserve of 1913 or Warren G. Harding's assassination or JFK's assassination or Waco or Oklahoma City or 9/11. One of those events was the last nail in the coffin, but the events over the course of the last few weeks, that's the funeral for America. America is dead, gone, and buried. It's never going to be the same. Even if they restore to us some of the things that they've taken away in the previous weeks and restore to us some of the things that they will take away from us in the up and coming weeks, it's never going to be the same. 30% unemployment, you're not going to recover from. The supply chain breaking down, you're never going to recover from. I don't look for 24-hour stores. Could be wrong. They could open up again 24-hour stores such as Walmart supercenters, but I don't see it in the near future. I see us being in a restrictive society, locked down, told to practice social distancing, not being able to enjoy freedom any longer. And I think this is going to go on for the next few weeks. Trump says this is the worst week ever. Well, Mr. Trump, every week's been the worst week ever since you've taken office. Who would have thought that we'd say, wow, the good old days of Bill Clinton? Because this country was in better shape under him than it is under you. You're the one who called for the national emergency to be declared and then set these things in motion. So a lot of craziness going on right now. And, you have people calling on other people. That's the thing that just breaks my heart. People calling on other people. And I guess these people think that they're doing a favor to the person they're calling on, but you're not. You're doing a favor to them when you are allowing them to be responsible for their freedom in their life. And you just back off. And that's what people need to learn to do. And we need to educate people, the people that watch this show. Brian at High Impact Flicks puts a lot of good videos out. Gregory Manarino puts a lot of good videos out. Share those videos. And, Gerald Salente puts a lot of good videos out. Jeff Berwick puts a lot of good videos out. Share those videos because I'm telling you, 9,000 people dying is nothing to be alarmed about. Now, it's sad that 9,000 people died, but a lot of these deaths, which are being attributed to coronavirus, are not coronavirus deaths. A lot of people have heart conditions, a lot of people dying from kidney failure, a lot of people dying from ailments that people die from all the time. However, if they test positive for the coronavirus, you know, if they test positive, then their death is attributed to coronavirus. Then you've got the testing. They say that 900,000, I forget how many people they say have coronavirus worldwide, but you know, there's 80% false positives out there. So the numbers are being inflated. They're being artificially inflated to keep people in fear, so people will turn over their freedoms, so people will relinquish what little bit of freedoms that they had to the federal government, and that they will do as the federal government states, like sheep. We have a bunch of followers. We have no leaders. You know, it just, like I said, it breaks my heart that people are turning in other people, that they're calling on people who are having maybe a Bible study where they have 10, 11, 12 people in their home, a birthday party, cops going in, breaking up birthday parties. And there's nothing to this virus. Dr. Anthony Fauci, he gets on and he says 2, 3 million people could die, but in the New England Journal of Medicine, he states that this is more akin to a severe seasonal influenza that has a death rate of 0.1%. Now, tuberculosis has a death rate of 15%, but we don't shut down anything for that. Now, look at the deaths attributed to pneumonia. Millions a year, but we don't shut down anything for that. We don't go in quarantine. That tells me that something else is going on. They're crashing the economy. They want to make everyone a debt slave, and the Federal Reserve's going through the back door using the United States government to nationalize everything and buy everything up. And then there'll be the buyer and lender of last resort. They'll own everything. They'll determine how much money you make, how much you're going to get on your retirement. They'll determine everything, people, unless people wake up, unless we can get them to wake up. So there's something else that's been on my mind that I want to address quickly if I can. And there is a certain group of people, religious people, that really get under my skin, and that's Christians. And the reason that they get under my skin is because they follow these charlatans who keep them in fear in the hopes that keeping people in fear will help fill their bank accounts. And that is what Christianity, Catholicism, same thing, works off of. Fear. Keep people in fear. Make people think that the church has control over your eternal soul. And so they make up these stories and they keep people in fear. So people keep giving them money because you're buying your way into heaven. You know, better pay your tithes. Well, tithes, I'll pay my tithes. I'll pay it like they used to be paid with agriculture. Next time you're in a church and they're passing the plate, throw a head of lettuce in the offering plate. See what kind of look you'll get from that. But that's a true tithe. Tithe was on agriculture. If you wanted to give money, you had to make an exchange and add 20% to it. So the Eternal One, Elohim, he was not interested in money. It was for the upkeep of the priesthood in the temple, which we no longer have, the Hekal, the temple. So anyway, we have a lot of people right now trying to scare people, saying that, oh, there's a future 7-year period of tribulation. There's a future beast. There's a future antichrist. And they're using the headlines, today's headlines, to interpret Scripture instead of allowing Scripture to interpret Scripture. You can't use the headlines to interpret Scripture. And you can't try and make Scripture fit the headlines. Okay? Prophecy is of the past. Prophecy that is in Scripture is of the past. It's not the future. There's no future Antichrist. There's no future beast. There's no future 7-year period of tribulation. I have studied. I have researched it. Your pastor who tells you he has? No, he hasn't. He's working off an opinion that was passed down to him by someone else that did not investigate the matter. And then it was handed down to him and he didn't investigate the matter, because you can't look at a Hebrew document and try and read it like it's an American document, because it's not an American document. A Hebrew document is a concrete document. And even the Greek is a different language altogether than the Hebrew. Hebrew is a concrete language. There are analogies, there are certain ways, there are idioms, certain ways of speaking that are foreign to the English language. And if you don't know about these idioms, these colloquialisms, you're going to be lost. And you're not going to understand the text. Prophecy was concerning the time of Messiah's revealing to Israel, and then the kingdom being taken from Israel and going throughout the world. It has nothing to do with the future for us. It is in our past. In Daniel chapter 9, verse 24, 70 weeks are determined upon your people and upon your set apart city to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins. We know what that was. And to make reconciliation for iniquity. We know what that was. And to bring in everlasting righteousness. And to seal up the vision and prophecy. And to anoint the most Kodesh, are set apart. One more time, 70 weeks are determined upon your people and upon your set apart city, to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most set apart. To seal up vision and prophecy. Vision and prophecy would be sealed up, meaning it would be brought to a close, brought to an end, or completed. Then, if you go to Mark chapter 8, Messiah is talking to his Talmudim, or his disciples, and he's explaining to them when they would see the kingdom of Elohim. In verse 38, whosoever therefore shall be ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him also shall the Son of Man, or Son of Adam, be ashamed, when he comes in the esteem of his Father with his set apart messengers. Verse 1 of chapter 9 then goes on to tell us who is going to see the Son of Adam coming in the esteem of the Father, in the majesty of the Father. He says, verily I say unto you, that there be some of those that stand here, standing here now, who shall not taste of death till they have seen the kingdom of Elohim come with power. So the kingdom of Elohim was going to arrive at a time when people who were standing, listening to Messiah at that time, were still alive. Then if you go to Luke chapter 16, this will take us back to the book of Daniel, and what Daniel was talking about when he spoke of vision and prophecy being sealed up. And in Luke chapter 16, verse 16, he says, and the Torah and the prophets were until Yochanan, John. Since that time, the kingdom of Elohim is preached or proclaimed, and every man presses into it. So he says right here, the Torah and the prophets, the Torah and the prophets, those books, were until Yochanan, John. Since that time, the kingdom of Elohim is proclaimed, and every man presses into it. Then, if you go to Acts chapter 2, you have Kepha, and he's confronted by the Yehudim, the true Jewish people of the time concerning what was happening at that time and how it fit into prophecy. So he states that these are not drunken as ye suppose, seeing it is but the third hour of the day, but this is that which was spoken by the prophet Joel or Joel. He says, this is that which was spoken by the prophet. And it shall come to pass in the last days, says Elohim, I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. And on my servants and on my handmaidens I will pour out in those days of my spirit, and they shall prophesy. And I will show wonders in heaven above, and signs in the earth beneath, blood and fire and vapor of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and notable day of Yah comes. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Master shall be saved. So he says right here, this is that. This is that time period that Joel was speaking of. Things got very bad for Israel. You had earthquakes back then in diverse places. You had famines then. That's why they would take up collections to send to Jerusalem because of the famine. The famine was so bad in Jerusalem that when the Roman army surrounded it in 70 CE and before 70 CE, people were actually eating their babies. So, you want to talk about a rough and tough time. That was the rough and tough time. That was a tribulation period for the physical kingdom of Israel before that kingdom went out into all the world through the message of Messiah. So then if you go back to Matthew chapter 23, this is where Mashiach, before he gives his Mount of Olives discourse, he's talking to the priest. He's talking to the Sanhedrin. And he goes on to say, you serpents, you generation of vipers, how can you escape the judgment of Hades? Therefore, behold, I send unto you prophets and wise men and scribes, and some of them you shall kill and crucify, and some of them you shall scourge in your synagogues and persecute them from city to city, that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel unto the blood of Zachariah son of Barachiah, whom ye slew between the temple or Hekal and the altar. Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation, not 2,000 years down the road. And then his Talmudim disciples take him to the Mount of Olives and say, when shall these things come to pass? And he tells them. And what he broke down for them was what exactly took place in 70 CE with the destruction of the Hekal and Jerusalem. Let Scripture, not the newspaper headlines, not the headlines on your local news or the MSN, let Scripture interpret Scripture. Then you have in Hebrews chapter 1, Shaul, some people say Yaakov, James, and it's still debatable. I lean towards Shaul being the one who wrote Hebrews, but he even states that they were in the last days then. He says, Elohim, who at many times and in various manners spoke in time past unto the fathers by the prophets, has in these last days spoken unto us by his Son. These last days. It was the last days of the kingdom of Israel as they knew it before it went into all the world. So then, if you go to Revelation chapter 1, it gets even easier to see who prophecy was given to and what time period it would take place in. There are a lot of charlatans making a lot of money off of lying to a lot of people, and a lot of people will not look into things. Case in point, you have a day coming up right now. I think I don't pay attention to when it happens because I'm not into paganism, and Christianity is built on paganism. But a day that goes by the name of Easter, a day of a pagan goddess, and Christians will celebrate the resurrection of their Jesus Christo, their Jesus Christ on that day, and it's a pagan day named after a pagan goddess. And with all of these pagan rituals and ceremonies surrounding it, such as Easter eggs and bunnies and, hams, and all of these traditions go back to ancient Babylon. They have nothing to do with the Messiah of Scripture, and people don't question it. They don't research it. If you tell them about it, they won't research it, and they'll just buy into all this paganism, and they think that somehow they're still saved, part of the kingdom. It doesn't work that way. So, in Revelation chapter 1, it says, the revelation of Yeshua Messiah, which Elohim gave unto him, to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass, and he sent and revealed it by his messenger unto his servant Yochanan, John. Then it goes on to say, Baruch, or blessed, is he that reads, and they that hear the words of this prophecy, and keep the things which are written therein, for the time is at hand. Now, in the Hebrew, when you say the time is at hand, you're not talking about 2,000 years down the road. You're talking about the time is at hand, meaning things are going to unfold rather quickly. The time is at hand. If I come in and I'm grilling and I've got the burgers about ready to be pulled off the grill, and I say, hey, it's almost time, the time's at hand. My wife doesn't say, well, I've got 2,000 years until he brings the meat in. So then if you go to Revelation chapter 22, which wraps up everything, and you have Messiah talking to Yochanan and the messenger talking to Yochanan, and there's timestamps within Revelation chapter 22. And the first timestamp is verse 7, behold, I come quickly. I come quickly, not 2,000 years down the road. If I were to run into town, pick up some things, and then my wife calls because I've been gone a while, and I'm just down the road, and she calls and she says, when are you coming home? And I say, hey, I come quickly. She knows that I'm real close. I'm on my way home. It's not 2,000 years. So then you have in verse 10, and he said unto me, seal not the words of the prophecy of this book, for the time is at hand. Now he told Daniel in the book of Daniel to seal up the words, the vision, for the time was not yet. But he tells Yochanan, seal not the words of the prophecy of this book, for the time is at hand. Not 2,000 years down the road. The time is at hand. So then if you go to verse 12, and behold, I come when? Quickly. And my reward is with me, to give every man according as his work shall be. So then you have in verse 20, he who testifies these things says, surely I come quickly. Amen. He gave a reward to Israel, Yerushalayim. because they rejected him. Their reward was death and destruction. The reward for those who listened to his voice and fled was life. You can't make the newspapers try and fit scripture. People did it back in the Bolshevik Revolution with Russia. People did it in World War I, World War II. People did it in 1948, 1963, during the 70s. Hal Lindsey had 88 reasons why uh, Jesus is coming back in 1988. And then you have all of these false prophets, and that turns people away from the belief because their prophecies, their predictions never come to pass because they're not reading scripture and letting scripture interpret scripture. They're not reading scripture correctly. That's why you have all these people scared and they think it's going to be the end. And a mark of the beast has nothing to do with a monetary system. It has all to do with allegiance, because all throughout the Tanakh, the books that are erroneously called the Old Testament by the Christian church, all throughout the Tanakh, you have the mark of Yah, the mark of Elohim. And what is that mark? It's shown by what you do and who your allegiance is to. The thoughts of your mind, your forehead, that mark there, and the mark upon your right hand, meaning your actions. All throughout Tanakh, it's talked about. So what's the opposite of the mark of Elohim? It's disobedience to Elohim. So now scripture or history can repeat itself because people seem to do the same crazy things over and over. And people have been trying to establish a world government forever. You had Babylon, you had the Medes and the Persians, you had Greece, and you had Rome. And we're still living in that Roman time period. We're still living in that time period to where our government and all of our structure can, has an uncanny resemblance to the Roman government. But just because you have bad times, they had bad times during the Inquisition under Gregory, the Pope. You had bad times all during the Inquisitions, times of Charlemagne, where you had all the persecutions. And it hasn't been until recently, though, that people started talking about futurism. You had Larkin and Schofield kind of made it up, and they based it off of a dream of a girl that was named Mary McDonald. It was her dream, and then all of a sudden, this starts taking off, this futuristic doctrine, and oh, World War I, oh, it's the end time. Oh, World War II, oh, it's the end time. And then when you start crying wolf over and over and over and over and over and over again like that, people are going to not believe you anymore. They're going to leave. And that's what you've had. They've lost confidence in the message. But if you can take and show them through scripture how these things were fulfilled, these prophecies already were fulfilled, you can strengthen confidence and strengthen the belief in scripture. Now, I'm still dealing with an issue in my life, but I know the truth about this because I've studied it out. And, I'm still dealing with the hate issue. Things are getting better. But the truth is the truth. Scripture allows scripture to talk to you and allows scripture to interpret scripture, and scripture will show and history will show that these things that you're talking about have already taken place. And when you can show people that they've already taken place, then you can strengthen their confidence and belief in scripture, and they'll be more apt to obey scripture and follow the one who inspired scripture, Yeshua Messiah. So the fear mongering about the end times, just because you have people who are hell bent on creating a one world government and giving people vaccines just because they have self-fulfilling prophecies and are mimicking things that have taken place in the past doesn't mean that that is fulfilling prophecy in scripture. It's not. Because I guarantee people, we're going to be the same types of things were going on in Nazi Germany and during the World War II era that are going on now. And that generation has come and gone, and a lot of them have passed away. And I'm telling you, whether I'm here in 21 years or not, this world is still going to be here, and a lot of you are still going to be here. And, got a lot of people saying we're at the beginning of that 7-year tribulation. Well, I'm telling you, 21 years later, you're still going to be here. And then there's going to be a lot of people losing confidence. There's going to be a lot of people losing their belief. As far as a harlot, all of that, it's in the past. And I know a lot of people will say this is anti-Semitic, but the harlot was Yerushalayim. That's definitely not the Roman Catholic Church. You can't go to Revelation chapter 17 and 18 and read that and tell me that that's the Roman Catholic institution. Roman Catholic institution does not produce anything except lies. Now, it has that same spirit, definitely. But the harlot was Yerushalayim. Yeshayahu, Isaiah the prophet, even stated that the set-apart city has become a harlot. So anyway, just wanted to get that off my chest because I'm reading all over the place where people think we're going into the end times. This is the start of tribulation. Well, for you futurists who believe in a pre-tribulation rapture, according to what you've been saying, you should have already been gone by now. But anyway, wanted to talk about that. I've gone long, but hopefully you've gotten something from this broadcast. Once again, William Moore for Beyond the Ties That Bind. Until next time, everyone, shalom.